Good evening. I'm really excited for tonight's meeting on economic development. Can't wait to hear the report from our team down here. We have a full team. I love it.
We do have a full team.
Yeah.
Plus one.
Plus one.
today.
Well, you're
So
part of the
she's
team.
part of our team.
A professional part of our team. I'll let you introduce them all, but first we need to do a roll call.
Councilmember Dennehy. Councilmember Schmischer.
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith, absent. Councilmember Stein, absent. Councilmember Tracy.
Here.
Councilmember Worthington.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. All right, now we will turn the time over to you.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Brandon, if you want to start my slideshow, that would be awesome. All right, we haven't done an update for council in a little while, so this is it's a good thing because there's been a lot of stuff happening in the about time. Yeah, I won't say what you said. But there's a lot of activity happening right now, and we have a guest here to help us understand a little bit more what's going on. So the agenda is pretty quick. We have a hard stop at 6, so we're going to skim through a couple of things, and we'll spend a little bit more time on retail recruitment toward the end of it. But we'll be talking about grants. Quick talk about private activity bonds. That's a preliminary to the next city council meeting. That'll be a discussion item, I believe a discussion item in the next city council meeting to talk about private activity bonds, but I'll present it today just as an overview. Updates and rumors, lots of rumors out there, so I'll address what I know of those rumors, and I won't address what I can't know of those rumors. And then we'll have an update on economic activity, including the retail coach update. So the good news, and we are not working. Oh. There we go. We do have a full staff right now. For the first time in probably a year and a half, we have a full staff right now. Ryan LeClaire has joined us this week, so he's swimming in the knowledge of, swimming in the information of economic development in our community and learning a whole new way to look at our community. Started Monday. We had interviews, as you may recall, with two candidates that were very close in terms of the benefit they could have provided to our community. We selected Ryan primarily because of feedback we got from our our interview panel, and a very, very good personality fit, long-term approach to relationship building with our business leaders that he quite honestly started before he even interviewed for the position. So I think he's a great fit. He's going to be swimming in information for quite a while, but he'll be sticking around here afterwards if you want to have a conversation with him. But let's welcome him. So welcome, Ryan, for being here. And of course, Brandy is our grant writer. It's been a little while since some of you have seen her. She's been very active, and that's going to be the first topic we talk about here. When you talk about investing in a position, this position generates revenue for our community in big numbers. So a lot of stuff happens in this community through grants, and she's been a big plus in this community. So I will hand it over to Brandy.
So we put together a slide deck of our grant overview and activity over the last 3 years. We're just going to go through an introduction, our grant totals, how we've come to those grants in our area of focus over the last few years, and then a summary. The city created the grant writer position in February of 2020. It was considering the pandemic and the new normal, the position has funded over $6 million in grant awards. This does not include any of the COVID-related grants or funding, so that is all regular standard grants. We were very heavily involved inside those COVID funding dollars from reporting and filling out the paperwork to get those, but we didn't count those in our regular totals here. With those, it was over $11 million with our COVID funding and grants. So a big 3 years. As you can see, we've steadily increased. starting at $1 million in the standard grants, and this year we are at 2.4. So we're steadily increasing what we're doing, and we still have the last quarter to go through to possibly obtain more under that total. Some of our areas of focus over the last 3 years are, of course, our PD is very heavily funded through grants from co-responders and LIDAR, SWAT team, the mental health aspect. We've also done some brownfields, cleaning up and remediating some of those spaces. Our small businesses have benefited. Our Main Street, our Parks building is probably the biggest award that we've received, and we plan on moving our Parks building outside of Centennial Park up onto the top of 9th Street and helping that be more of a continuous space for our departments. We get there one step at a time. It's how you eat an elephant, is one bite at a time. Each grant's an individual application. Each one has a separate portal, a separate process, a separate connection of people that you need to create those bridges with and align their affinity to fund with our needs. This prioritization is based on, of course, deadlines of projects, deadlines of grants, and helping all of those pieces align. We have a rolling list of needs, wants, and projects that my very large whiteboard holds all the time. And so depending on when grants line up for funding with those projects is what we go for. If there's ever a competing grant that fits multiple needs across there, of course, we consult department heads, the city administrator, and take that forward, aligning that with the best vision for the city. As we continue and prioritize with the comprehensive plans and look after the best interest of our citizens in future, we'll continue to flow with the consistent change of visions and diversity that are outlined. We're going to help those tax dollars go further and help our city continue to achieve more.
One of the nice things I think about our grant success is obviously we can provide more services to the community, more infrastructure improvements to the community. The police department can have needed equipment, cars, support services, you name it. But as we succeed in attracting and implementing and finishing grants, it's easier to attract more grants because you're seen as a responsible organization. It's when we don't use a grant that we have to return the funds that doesn't look very good on us. So kudos to Brandy and the entire finance staff actually for managing the grants, because it's a big job. It's a big deal to do it. But also tells me that we as a community still have a need for growth to the extent that we should be able to, in some cases, supply our own needs, supply for our own needs. We are not completely a self-sustaining community at this point, and the grants are really helping us become that, I guess you could say, fuel the growth to some extent and help developers, like the retailers we're going to talk about, and the developers and the brokers, see that there's a lot of activity happening here. Crime is hopefully coming down. The police department is very, very well respected in our community, very present in our community. And I think a lot of that is because of the ability to draw funds into the community through the grant program. So it's been very successful, and I'd love to see the growth from year to year. And we'll take questions if you have them, of course.
I just want to say kudos to Brandy. I think I've paid attention, and even during COVID, and that I think you and the rest who are working with you've done an outstanding job, and I just want to say is thank you, and I mean that sincerely.
Thank you, Tim.
I do have a question. Brandy, on the grant funds that we receive, maybe you could, if you know the number, or let us know through some other forum or something like that. But so if we're granted $1 million, but we have to spend $500,000 to get the grant, that $500,000 number would be important to us also. So maybe include that, or let us know what that number, or do
So
you
you're
know?
talking about grant match? So all the
Yes.
awards there did not include our match. That is awards from outside funding, not including our match. Each match is different based on the grant. Some of them have zero match, some of them have a 50-50 match, like our Parks building. The total for the Parks building is actually $750,000 award, even though we will be spending double that,
Sure, and so that number, that's the number I'm looking for.
is how much we've put
The
in toward
matching?
match.
Yes, how much the city has to put up to match the grants.
Okay, it depends on each individual, and I can
Understand.
get you a spreadsheet.
Yeah, we can get you the
Aggregate.
details on that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Councilmember Schmischer has her hand up.
You're on mute, friend.
I keep on doing that. I keep on lowering my hand, but not taking myself off of mute. Sorry about that. Also, kudos to Grandy. $6.3 million in grant awards since February of 2020, with not even taking into account the COVID dollars, is amazing. And to see that trend of growth each year is also, like, it's truly impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved hearing a little bit about how the city prioritizes amongst the different departments, if there could potentially be competing interests. I'm wondering if we have a similar process set up, or if there are potentially competing entities across our area that are applying for similar grant funds, whether it's the rec district, whether it's the county. I'm just curious, do we have anything like that set up yet, or is that something that we would be looking to in the future? Thank you.
We could absolutely look toward that in the future. However, most grants are very specific in who can apply. So some of those things that apply for our city or population based on our rural capacity as being a municipality, they don't qualify the county or small business or the rec district for those as the same as nonprofits and small business. So most of those are very competitive within their own circle, and there are different competitive grants with the county that we have applied for. That they qualify for. As far as I know, I'm not sure if they have applied for the same grants we have, but that hasn't come up just yet.
I think they've only recently acquired a grant writer to focus on grants to the same integrity
I
that we
think that
have.
was 2021.
2021. But you might know more, Ryan, but UCOG seems like they're kind of that hub that kind of orchestrates more of the regional opportunities. Beth Lanz has really been focusing, and Beth Lanz will be the one that says, okay, guys, I found this grant. This community, you guys can qualify for this, and maybe if we come together and apply for it, we can have even more leverage. And so there is some regional, as far as in our little district and
Right.
county, some cooperation.
Yep,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
broadband, we have made an approach on different levels as a partnership, and the more partnerships and support you have, the stronger your appeal is.
Yeah, going back to Beth Lenz and the UACOG, that position specifically for the Infrastructure and Jobs Act grant opportunities and some of the federal programs that are being rolled out because of that. So she's helping to quarterback within the region, which is great. Another thing that we do, Rick, myself, Brandy, we get all kinds of emails about different grant opportunities. If we see something that's not a fit for us, but it may be a fit for one of the other agencies, we're forwarding that out, making sure the other agencies know that there might be opportunities out there for them as well.
I think, like at our mayor's roundtable, probably the most challenging communities would be like Coal Creek and Rockville, the really, really super small ones. They've been seeking some grant money with some help through UCOG, but for them to even come up with the match is almost nearly impossible. And so they've been trying to come together collectively, with their 4 smaller communities, but it's still a challenge.
And that's part of what I do too, is talk to those people and forward things out. And it's really hard on the administrative side for those smaller communities to follow through with the grant terms and reporting, because there's a lot on the backside. It's not just turning in a pretty piece of paper.
Yeah, but maybe an example of a collaboration, Councilmember Schmischer, is that they had recently applied for a grant, the 4 communities, for fixing their roads. And they found out that money got funneled straight to the state. They're really discouraged about that. Hopefully they can still acquire some of it. But the county actually had an asphalt machine that could fill potholes and help them, and they're donating that to those communities so they can still have a tool to be able to take care of some of their needs. And so those mayor's roundtables really help provide those opportunities to help each other out.
Thank you. Looking forward to kind of more collaboration and more ability to prioritize when there may be competing interests in our region as well. Thanks so much for everything that you're doing, and looking forward to the future as well. Thanks.
That's a good fit with a lot of other things that are happening in our communities too, the regions too. So I think it's a natural direction to go from economic development perspective, from a housing perspective, from, there's a big push from a federal level in some of the CHIPS funding to do pretty broad regional cooperation with granting. And it's tough in those cases. It's tough when a certain section of the region has priorities and the entire region does not have the same priorities. It doesn't really work out that way, but there's a lot of effort going into creating those regional footprints, I guess you could say. So it's a good fit for the direction we're going.
So Randy, I have a question, because administering over $11 million worth of grant money, that's a lot of work. Can you maybe enlighten us a little bit more about what that entails for you, and are we at capacity of what we're capable of doing?
We've got a really good, strong team. Finance is a big part of what I do. Bringing in Mary Pat was pretty huge help to our department. We spread out the work quite a bit. So each one of the grant applications comes from a partnership with whatever department head is their department that's really going to champion that grant. And then we collaborate through the application process and submittals, and that all goes through me. Upon award, finance jumps in there and helps to set up GL codes and line items, and then we schedule out quarterly reports, annual reports, and closeout reports from the get-go of contracting with the attorneys. I wouldn't say that we're at capacity. I think we're doing okay. If we continue the upward trend in the direction that it's going, I could absolutely share my office with somebody.
Aha. Well, when we created your position in the first place, the dialogue was you will pay for yourself. So I don't know if your other somebody might help pay for themselves. But, Councilmember Tracy.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Brandy, for the information. If you touched on this, I missed it. Is there a little bit different process or focus during the budget time of the year? In other words, is there maybe a special effort to look at budget requests in line with what possible grants might be out there to apply related to that budget item?
Yes, ma'am. We go through each department and each department head, each potential grant and need, and if there is a grant, that line items that out. So they have to call out the match that could be required for their project if the grant was awarded.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you. Do you know how many other agencies or groups, organizations apply for grants in Fremont County?
No, I couldn't say. I know that there's over 280 nonprofits that are registered just within Southern Colorado. That gets up to the 4,000 nonprofit line, and we can collaborate in some of those, but every grant is different on their capabilities, and grantors do not share that information because it's kind of confidential who doesn't receive those grants, just for that entity's sake.
And the reason I ask is because some of the things that council has done is we have the city-county meeting, we have the mayor's meeting. It would seem to me that the grant writing process does not look like it's shrinking. Looks like it's continuing to grow, and it may be worthwhile for you grant writers to think about maybe getting together on a quarterly basis if you can identify the other people, because there are a lot of, for instance, I know that FEDC seeks grants. some of the charitable organizations internally have a grant process, but that's kind of a different animal than what we're talking about here. But it would seem to me that there might be some virtue in, at some point, getting the grant writers together to just kind of talk to each other and share some, if nothing else, war stories about what's going on and things like that.
I have communication with Diana over at FEDC, and anybody else that's writing that can use the support. There's really a good, tight-knit community that we have, and that's part of us sending things to the FD or the nonprofits and the nonprofit coalition. So we have conversations and communications with a lot of them on the levels. I don't know how you would identify all of the grant writers in the community, or if that's something they would be willing to participate in, but we're always open to communication from others and helping out where we can.
That could be a tough one, because even the nonprofits, even if it comes to sitting down to making a calendar for their fundraiser events to make money, they do not want to share their secrets, and they don't want anyone trampling on their potential to make more money. And so they get pretty private, and there's some respect for their desires.
And I've sat on the nonprofit board with Lori and talked to them and offered our services on multiple levels as levels of support, whether that's just a letter saying, hey, we absolutely support your project, or that's offering to collaborate. But it's very specific in the grant world as to what you can and can't apply for and who you can partner with. We do a lot with the nonprofits at RG Rio. We've assisted in some of theirs as well, and we've got a pretty good communication line. But I don't know about connecting all the grant writers.
Yeah,
I'd
it's a two-way
be open
street.
to it, but
Or even the, some group of them, the most important ones, perhaps. Just a suggestion.
great thought.
Any other questions?
Well, when I came on 8 years ago, the overriding culture was, we will not apply for grants. They are a pain. We don't want to have to match funds. They're a nuisance. We are not writing grants. And for some people too, maybe like we don't want to get big government involved. And we have absolutely changed that, and Canyon City has really come a long ways in so many avenues. And it wouldn't be possible if we did not get the $6.3 million, especially the addition, the overall 11 million with COVID, that this department is really key in making us to have the ability to do so many important things. Some of them are fun things,
Some of them are fun things.
which is awesome that we can do that and say,
Parks and trails.
yeah,
How fun is that?
parks and trails and all this is super fun. And to be able to tell our citizens when they say, well, why aren't you fixing our streets? Like, well, this is grant money that's paying for it. This is actually your taxpayer money that we're bringing back to our community. But there's also things like the Main Street from 1st to 3rd Street, and that's a major basic infrastructure that we're using grant money. And so I'm really proud, really proud that we have made that shift, and that we're bringing in multi-millions of dollars to really help Canyon City become the best that it can be. So thanks for making that possible, to you and the entire team.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Private activity bonds, I'm going to skim over this pretty quickly because we've got other more pressing things to talk about. This is an item that will be in the city council meeting, in the first meeting of September. The city had never been allocated private activity bonds in the past, but we reached a population threshold that the state of Colorado allocated over $1 million of private activity bonds to us to issue as we desire for housing development, small-scale manufacturing. The challenge that communities have like us, and this is a federal program, private activity bonds were created by the federal government. They're basically created to assist with development opportunities. One of the most popular ways is that there are low-income housing tax credit projects. There's 9% projects and there's 4% projects. 9% are very competitive. They don't have a lot of them that are awarded. There's a 4% LIHTC project that is more difficult to create, to benefit from, because it requires more of a financial stack, more financing involved. Private activity bonds can be used to cover the delta between the 4% and the 9%. So they're very popular for private activity bonds. The challenge that communities have like us is that they are too small for our community. $1 million in a bond issue is a massively expensive thing to do, so we would need to carry forward or request allocations from other communities to up our total of private activity bonds in order to really benefit from them. So we are proposing, and this is a conversation with Ryan and Corey, we've talked to Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. We are proposing that we allocate our private activity bonds to CHAFA, because CHAFA is already benefiting our community in a number of different ways, primarily mortgage assistance. So you've got a packet in front of you of information that explains more about private activity bonds. You'll be seeing this more in the next city council meeting. I just wanted to present it today as an informational, little bit of information as a preliminary for the next meeting. This is what CHAFA is doing in our community right now, single-family loans for the most part. They can also be involved with low-income housing tax credit projects, and there is a low-income 9% tax credit project in the works for our community for 2024. CHAFA will be involved with that for sure. So money going back to CHAFA, our allocation going to CHAFA will come back to our community. Another option is we do nothing, and it goes back to the statewide balance, which would not necessarily come to our community. So that's what the discussion will be at the next city council meeting. So to be continued. Updates, fact or fake? A lot of rumors out there. What we're talking about here is all of the activity that's going on out there in the community, primarily the rumors, and we'll get into the real stuff that's going on too, but one little caveat is we often don't know what's going on with real estate transactions because, quite honestly, they're private real estate transactions. So a lot of the rumors that are out there, we honestly don't know. We try to do what we can to find out, and sometimes we can. It still doesn't mean we can really share that information. We can just use that information to guide our decisions and our recruitment efforts down the road. So with the help of the retail coach, and Caroline is here, and I'll introduce her in a little bit, we are beginning to establish relationships with brokers that are being more forthcoming about what is coming to our community, and they're asking us what we would like to see in our community. But the reality is, if it's a private transaction, we probably don't know what's happening until it's mandatory to come through city council for entitlement processes. So with that, a little bit of caveat there. Office Depot, Big R homeless shelter, definitely not a homeless shelter.
Never. Okay, let's just say this.
Let's.
It is never, ever,
Yeah.
ever going to be a homeless shelter.
We are, and this is myself and Patrick Mulready,
No,
our
it's
planner,
not.
and Caroline with the retail coach. We have had a number of conversations, Zoom meetings with the owner of Office Depot. He was very humored. He really laughed at the thought of it being a homeless shelter because people can come right off the train.
Oh,
But
no.
it is not going to be a homeless shelter. We don't know about Big R. He didn't tell us exactly what he had in mind. He did tell us, though, that he wants to work with us. And if it takes 14 months, 16 months to fill it with something we need in the community that's a good tenant, they will hold it that long to work with us. So they talked about potentially making it a multi-tenant facility. It doesn't pencil. It would require too high of a lease rate. So they're going to keep it a single occupancy building. And we are working toward attracting retail for that. That's appropriate. Onto the U-Pump-It. We know from U-Pump-It itself that they've been sold. We don't know any details really about why or what's happening that we can share. Les Schwab Tire, opening in January 2024. Tim, nice expression. Dutch
Well,
Brothers Coffee.
Can we just have a little conversation about tire shops?
Yeah.
And gas stations?
Yeah.
Too, and I mean, and maybe that's part of the rumor mill too. I mean, we get a lot of comments, like on social media, like, why are you allowing another gas station? Why are you allowing another tire shop? why did you allow Waffle Wagon to sell their building? And we love Waffle Wagon. This is, you know.
We do love Waffle Wagon.
And
Yeah.
we do love Waffle Wagon a lot. And maybe we aren't, I'm sorry, but maybe we aren't super excited about another tire shop or a gas station necessarily, unless there's an Arby's that's 24 hours, 24/7 attached to it. But these are all, as you mentioned, they're all privately owned properties. They are owned by private people, and that is their right to do what they want with that property, as long as it is in accordance to what is zoned
Yep.
and allowed in that area. And unless we want to put a moratorium on any of these things, then they're allowed to make those business decisions for themselves.
Correct, and there is the possibility of moratoriums, but I don't think we're there, and we are not in the business of telling realtors who they can and can't sell to, and owners who they can, what they can and can't do with their businesses. So, you're absolutely right, but the retailers that are booming right now are tire shops, gas stations, coffee shops, all of them that are coming. We're talking about Dutch Brothers here. I don't know if they're coming, we know they're interested. I've had conversations with brokers that they are interested in coming here. We have no knowledge about whether they are, or where they are, or when they are. Arby's, 24 hours at Love's, yes, we have one there. We have no confirmation of any other Arby's right now. And again, I want to say that we really can't talk about things that we know until until the company actually files an application and goes through the entitlement process. So could there be? There could be. And again, I've caveated as well that nothing happens until it's actually in the ground and operating. We've come to see that very often, that something's coming and then we know it's coming and then all of a sudden it's not coming. So it's very speculative to talk about things right now and very dangerous in a lot of respects in terms of real estate transactions if we do. Mr. Eds, still speculation. It is under contract, and I got that from a broker, not the broker that purchased it, a broker that wanted it. The broker that wanted it said it is under contract, no confirmation about what is there. Kroger's gas station, City Market refueling station, opening in December 2023. Waffle Wagon, we would love to know what's going on there. We've got brokers interested in it, and we'd love to know what's going on there. So once we find out, we'll work accordingly and appropriately. Planet Fitness is coming into the Bells site in Justice Center. They have applied for they've gone through the site plan process, the design process. They are now obtaining bids. So we know that's happening. Ironically, Bells is coming back to life, and they're interested in communities they were once in before too. So now we have an opportunity potentially to work with Bells. However, nothing is written in stone. There's no confirmation that they would come back. We just know that they're coming back with that name. So that's one of the directions we're looking as well. So a lot of rumors. Quite honestly, they're probably still going to be rumors because I can't confirm or deny one way or another. What is actually happening now? Love's Travel Plaza opening this weekend. It's supposed to be tomorrow. There's a lot of activity out there today. They were doing some employee tours as we were driving through there. Hotel St. Cloud, they've finished their first phase last year. They've got 3 phases that they're operating on, and they need to meet certain dates to hit their historic tax credits. First phase, of course, was a Public House. Public House was opened last December, end of December. The first floor, which will be the lobby, restaurant, and the speakeasy, are to be done this year. They're pushing hard to get there. From what I saw today, there's actually walls, and it's looking really good in there. So they're on target to do that. And then next year would be the floors, the rooms. So things are on track. You noticed, and they announced it, that they changed Fremont Provisions to a sports bar because they don't want to compete with the restaurant and the hotel. And initially, when they created Fremont Provisions, they created a menu that could be tested for the hotel. So they're moving forward with their plan accordingly. So looking very good there. Holy Cross Abbey is going through a subdivision process right now, so that's moving forward. That's an FEDC project, so I can't speak a whole lot on that. Skyline Steel site, the buildings are coming down right now. We will need to do some assessment, additional characterization of contamination there and cleanup. CDPHE is heavily involved with making sure this all happens as well. 4 Mile Ranch.
Hey, Rick, can I pause again at Skyline still?
Yep.
Because this is an exception to what we can say will or will not go in a place. And that's because Canyon City Council recognized that this is a very special piece of property. It has a lot of potential to provide riverfront development, especially for restaurants or maybe second-story apartments or a variety of things
Right.
that our community would love to see. And so we purchased that property, and we're helping to get rid of some of its blight and contamination so that it can be something special to hopefully attract developers, and we can decide what goes there because we own the city. The citizens of Canyon City own that property. And so that is an example of where we can have more control of what goes in those places.
Correct, and it's very consistent with all of our plans up to this point. The Centennial Park Master Plan, the Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan, and it's really fulfilling the plans of the community throughout the years. So it's very positive developments there. And then, as I mentioned, started to talk about 4 Mile Ranch. I'm working very closely with the buyer of it. He is projecting closing on it, acquiring the property. Again, it's not a done deal right now. These things can always fall through. He has not come to the city to file a formal application, but he's been very public about his intentions. And the mayor and I are actually in a video of a marketing video that they're putting together to attract more investors. He's very excited about it. So there's going to be most likely some development there in the coming years. So that's a very positive. Then on the retail development, that's why we have here. We work with the company called The Retail Coach, and Caroline Harrelson, sitting next to me, is a retail recruiter. She's their director of strategy. We also work with Aaron Farmer, who's the president of the company. We've also had the CEO of the company here to see our community. And I will hand it over to Caroline to explain their process and begin to talk about how we are working together to determine what we need and how we get it.
Actually, Caroline, before you start, Mayor, it looks like Councilmember Tracy has her hand up.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is there anything new regarding New Method Laundry? You had that on the slide. I didn't know if you.
Oh, I
were
missed
going
that,
to-
didn't I? New Method, we now own New Method Laundry. We are beginning the process of doing an engineering analysis, a formal engineering and demolition analysis. That we'll be using our brownfield grant for that, our multipurpose grant for that. We had a meeting here Monday with our brownfield consultant to talk about that. We'll call it an engineering design study because there's city considerations, there's insurance requirements, so the discussion about that. There's the need to make sure primarily that the neighboring walls are intact and remain intact. And how do we do that long term? So we're going through a design, we could call it engineering design demolition RFP process right now through our consultants on that. And we're
Thanks.
in communication with the neighboring property owners about that as well. And it will be required that contractors converse with the neighboring property owners.
Thanks.
Any
Sure.
other questions or comments before we move on to the next topic?
Yes, so just to clarify that, what we're engaged in right now is writing the RFP for the New Method Laundry to make sure that we have all of the requirements and, there's some tricky things that have to happen there to make sure we understand what the liabilities or possible failure methods may be there, and because of all that, that's gonna take some engineering to be able to get that all in a package that we can then send out to people who can do the demolition work
Correct.
so that we make sure that whatever happens there happens in a safe and environmentally sound manner.
Correct, and we are doing that all as a part of environmental assessment of the building. So all of the demolition of the building is covered by brownfield grants as assessment. So absolutely correct, yes. Yep. And then, when it's gone, then we evaluate the source of the contamination underneath the building, which quite ultimately may require removal of soil, it may just require capping. But the contamination that's out there right now, that's already been identified with the monitoring wells, has already been categorized. So the focus right now is getting the building down and assessing the source and then removing that. And that could mean creating the parking lot. We don't know yet at this point. So that's correct. So with that, any other questions on that?
Looks like we're ready to move on.
Please welcome Caroline.
Mayor, council, thank you so much, and you that are joining us on Zoom. Sorry for letting me be here. I was actually about to ask, would y'all mind if I step up to the podium or stand up to present? Is
Yeah,
that
whatever
okay?
you want.
All right, good deal. I'm gonna take my phone with me because I have some notes on my phone.
Here, take this with you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's make sure the mic is on.
Okay. I may even just, okay, light is broken, the mic is on. Okay, and I may even step up a little bit, but I'll try to bring the mic with me. I use my hands, and I don't want to knock Rick and Brandy out, but thank you guys so much for letting us come and letting us be here. Thank you for letting us present and talk to you. Here, let me come this way. A couple weeks ago via Zoom, and then having the chance to do it in person tonight. I'm going to go through the presentation that we put together, and if you can't hear me, please raise your hand if you're on Zoom. But
Well, it's not just for Zoom, but it's televised,
Ah.
and so that's a
Okay.
big reason why we need a
Perfect.
mic.
I'll try to come over this way a little bit so I can see the presentation also. But some information that I'm going to go through tonight, you guys have heard, I know that you heard in my presentation a couple weeks ago. You also heard when we first started working with you, so I may kind of fly through some of that because I want to specifically speak to some of the questions that I know that the council has and some of the community has had about our efforts, where we are and where we're going. So we've been working with Canyon City for a year now. I have so enjoyed my visit today, and I've so enjoyed working with you guys over the last year. Here's our process. For the sake of time, I'm going to be brief on this. We come in, we analyze the market, we analyze the opportunities, and we analyze the retail needs, right? And we get to know who your consumers are. So let me tell you how we do that. This is how we have looked at the consumers that are shopping and spending retail dollars in Canyon City regularly. This is what we call your primary retail trade area. So when we're looking at who's going or who's going to be shopping or spending dollars at Love's, right, when Love's opens, or some of the opportunities that are around Love's, we aren't considering those your primary consumers in Canyon City. Why not? Because those are the people that are going to be coming through highway traffic most likely. They're not looking to stop in Canyon City for something. They're getting gas, getting something to eat, getting back on the road to get where they're going. We love that we're going to be able to capture those sales tax dollars, but that's going to be a little bit larger of your, what we call your secondary retail trade area. Your primary retail trade area, we looked at a couple different opportunities or a couple different retail sites in the actual market, Walmart being one of those. And by heat map of cell phone analysis, and I think I've told you guys this before, but your cell phone has your home address or your home zip code attached to it, right? Unless you've turned off that feature, and you probably still didn't even turn it off all the way. So we're able to see by heat map who is visiting Walmart and how often, based on cell phones going into the building or parked in the parking lot or wherever we drew that polygon. Now this heat map shows you where those people are usually coming from. And so you can see, yeah, they're coming a little bit from the south, they're coming a little bit from southeast, but we're really looking at the red parts of who your primary consumers are that are spending sales tax dollars, retail dollars in your trade area with regularity. And so based on that, we're able to see that your Walmart specifically has, over the course of a one-year period, and you can see, sorry, I kind of covered it up. It ended August 23rd, 2023, so I'm guessing it started August 22nd or 24th, 2022. This was a year-long period. Looked at monthly visits. Total visit numbers for the year were 2.7 million. Average visits a month were 272,000. And then this shows you that if you look over here in the left-hand corner, on that heat map, 378,000. So 70% of your visits come from the hot red area. So that's basically right around Canyon City. So that's where we're considering where your primary consumers are coming from. That tells us that your primary population that's spending sales tax dollars, spending retail dollars in your market is not just the Canyon City city limits. We're able to expand it a little bit. And so now, I can show you a little bit more, but this tells you again, unique visitors, times of year that they're coming, times of day that they're shopping, number of daily visits, all information that we can get into, age, your demographic, the highest demographic, but really these are pretty scattered out. 20% of the visitors to Walmart are 50 to 59, but then you've got an older 18% in the 68% age group, but then you've even got some younger ones. So this is good that it's not just 80% of your market is this one age segment, right? Education, gender, the women are shopping at Walmart a little bit more, sounds typical, right? And then income levels, it's covering it up. But all of this information is information that speaks to retailers when they're looking at your market to see if it's a fit. Now, based on that heat map, we've drawn your retail trade area, and we kind of drew a polygon around what it looked like where those high target areas were, where people were usually coming from. One good thing, if you look at 2010, what that population was, and again, this is the aggregate, altogether population of those areas, 47,000 were showing growth to 2022 was 48,000, projecting growth in 5 years to 49,000. Now that we know that there are some rooftops coming to the area. We know there may be rooftops coming to the other communities. This is U.S. Census data, and so U.S. Census data cannot project rooftops. They're basing it off of growth historically over time. So they're looking at the past, projecting what it would be. We actually feel like this 2027 number is a little bit off because we do know of some housetops, rooftops, and developments that are coming in that are going to make this even bigger. But all that to say, we're able to say to a retailer, you guys have a consumer population of almost 50,000. That's really, really helpful when we're telling the story. You can see the demographics and council. Mayor, I think that Rick has provided all of this to you. It's also on the city's Retail 360 or Retail Shopping and Living in the area dashboard, so you can look into these a little bit closer.
And I can certainly send more out if anybody would
Yeah,
like.
please do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So let's speak to the retail demand, and I'm not sure if y'all have screens in front of you or if this is the only one you can see. Our friends on Zoom have they can see a little bit better than you can, and I'm sorry, but let me tell you how we look at the sectors that we're going to be recruiting real quickly. So we look at what the demand is in 2022, what the demand is projected to be by retail category in 5 years, and then what the percent growth is. I'm going to want to recruit retailers to your market where I'm seeing growth and I'm seeing the most growth, and also where I'm seeing the most retail dollars spent. So while I see over here, gift, novelty, and souvenir stores, if we see the demand for that, it's good, and you've got like a 1.64% growth, but do we want to recruit a retailer that's going to be about $900,000 worth of demand, or do we want to recruit a retailer that's going to be furniture and home furnishings, 2027 demand, 4.5 million, right? And so we're looking at the percentage growth, but also what the demand is and how much sales tax that could bring in if we were to get the right retailers into these positions. One other thing that I want to show you, clothing and clothing accessories. Look at the growth on the right-hand side. We all want more clothing stores, right? Everyone wants to say, oh, well, there's nowhere if I went to a wedding, or if I need a work outfit, or if my child needs this, XYZ. We are seeing that across the board annually. I think I've told y'all, if I haven't told y'all, if I didn't tell you last time, my Amazon story about my husband calling me and telling me that whatever debit card our Amazon account is linked to must be hacked. And I kept saying, why? And he said, I was just looking at the bank account in the last couple of days. I mean, it's like Amazon, 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 Amazon. And he was like, I mean, we've got to cancel that. And I was like, oh, goodness, I don't think it was hacked. That's the way things are going, right? So when we want clothing, yes. Can we support clothing? No. But there are other ways that we can do that. When you look at general merchandise, let's see here, it may be on the other slide. Let me go back one. Okay, if you look at the image on the right side, general merchandise stores, we see a huge number, 57, 63, 2.14% growth. There is a huge demand in this category. My grandfather owned a general merchandise store when I was growing up in a downtown small community. We're not talking like a general store of what it used to be. If you think of general merchandise stores now, think of your Marshalls, your TJ Maxx. What do they sell? Clothes, shoes, kitchen supplies, syrup that you put in your specialty coffee, bath towels, sheets, you name it, right? So you can get a little bit of everything. That's more the general merchandise store. That's what I see a huge, huge need for Canyon City and what I would like to see fill some spaces. So this is an idea of how we're focusing on what retail sectors and where we get this information. Site identification we talked about. We really want to make sure that we're targeting the right sites. We'll get to that. I know that y'all have a hard stop. I think you have another meeting in a few minutes, so I want to make sure that I get through this. Conference attendance. Now, here are some individuals. So here are some retailers on the left side that we have reached out to. And then in the gray, this is a small snapshot of another list that we pulled, and I think there were hundreds on that list that I sent to Rick that we have been going through, of retailers that we subscribe to a service that it tells us if your town has this, or if your demographics are this in this state, then this retailer should be there. Or if your town has this retailer, it usually also has this retailer. Now, looking at this list, as we both realize that there are some that may have been here in the past and closed, or may be here currently, or may not even be a fit for Canyon City and we're not going to recruit them. But all that to say, we are constantly, and the gray is just a small snapshot of of the list that we're going through and who we're still reaching out to. But we're constantly adding to it and thinking of what retail sector do we want to see, what retail sector do we need to see, and then what retailers are in that category that are doing something in this region or nationally or whatever it may be right now. So that's how we get some of that information. Now, the information that I don't have on a slide, so to speak, is number one, what retailers are interested, right? I don't want to say, so-and-so was here last week looking at the market, and this one was here last week looking at the market, and this one currently has an LOI on a property, because that's confidential information. I don't want to do anything that may mess up a potential deal. I can tell you that Rick even reached out to me last week and said someone had asked him about Sprouts. Not coming. I'm sorry to start the rumor mill, but I was able to quickly get an answer within 24 hours from Sprouts, and they said, hey, Canyon City's just too small for us right now. Thanks for thinking of us. Thanks for reaching out. Let us know in the future if anything comes up. He doesn't mean 6 months. He probably means several years, right? But we have the relationships in place with the right retailers. We know who to call to get the answers and the feedback. And I want to give you one or two more caveats to kind of put that in perspective. A couple weeks ago, actually, I think it was since our last meeting, Rick also reached out to me and said someone had come into his office or, run into someone at the Safeway, and they'd asked about Hobby Lobby. And I said, my exact words are, really funny that you're asking me about this because I just got off the phone with Hobby Lobby's master broker. And this guy out of Dallas, Texas called me, and usually I reach out to two individuals that are real estate corporate. I mean, their email address is at hobbylobby.com. They're the two guys that are real estate corporate for Hobby Lobby. And they reached out to him and they said, hey, can you call Caroline about XYZ community that I'd emailed them about? And he called me and he said, hey, he said, I'm their master broker. His company only works for Hobby Lobby now. And he was telling me kind of what they were looking at. And I said, well, in some of these markets, could you do a small concept? No, we really only do that 55,000 square foot concept because Rick had asked if maybe we could do the Office Depot as a smaller concept. So these are conversations that we're regularly having, but it was just very coincidental that he called me and I'd just gotten off the phone with Hobby Lobby. But the thing that Hobby Lobby said to me, and this was their broker, and I'm sorry I'm calling him by a retail name, but the thing that he said on that call was, when you're asking me about certain markets, here's some things that I want you to send me. And he said, don't just send the general market, send the actual site and tell me who's doing the development. And he said, because a general market is a maybe. It may be an in-between market. It may be we could go either way. We don't want to cannibalize this store. Or we don't know the traffic counts, if they would pull. But he said, if you send me the specific site, or if I know it's a developer that I've worked with in the past that I trust, he's a preferred developer, we haven't had any problems with him on deals we've done, it sweetens the pot a little bit for me. And he named several communities where we've worked with Hobby Lobby, and he told me, we passed on it, we passed on it, we passed on it until that developer came to the picture. And that's why we did that store right there that year that we did it. And so all this to say, I think a couple weeks ago when I spoke to you guys, I had mentioned that our next steps are, first of all, we needed to know who the retailers were that were interested. What's our lineup? What's the feedback that we're getting of no? How do we pivot and turn to the ones that may be a yes? How do we keep the yeses on the hook? So a couple weeks ago, Rick and I had a conversation with a broker who represents a few retailers he was like, it's a maybe market for them. It's a maybe market for them. And so I reached back out to him and I said, I know that you know the preferred developers for these retailers in this area. Can we just do a virtual market tour with you and show you some sites that would be wonderful development or redevelopment opportunities? And then if you want to market them to the developers that you know, then we'll send you and them the list of all the retailers that we have, and y'all can put the puzzle pieces together and let's make it work. And so we did that. We focused, we walked through several sites in the market. Virtually, we got to the Home Depot site, the parcel adjacent to Home Depot. And he said, this is interesting. Tell me more. And so on that call for probably 15 or 20 minutes, he asked a lot of questions about that parcel adjacent to Home Depot's parking lot. A lot of questions. And, well, who do you guys have that would be interested? And then, I said, well, this is, the pro of this is it's a lighted intersection. You've got this, you've got that. Love's is down there. So this is going to be one of the first things that you're going to see coming into town. Oh, yeah, I think I know that Love's was coming in, so on and so forth. We had this conversation as a follow-up. I sent him the leasing information for Home Depot's master broker. Now, let me back up. Earlier this year, this spring, I called Home Depot and I said, there is a parcel that you have, that you own adjacent to your store. Would you be interested in selling it? I think it's a prime opportunity. They said, let us have our broker call you. Broker called me out of California and he said, look, we're blowing and going building new stores. Marketing 2 acres next to a current store we just don't have time for that. Interesting that you called, what would you do with it? And so we had this conversation. He called me back about a month or 2 ago and said, let's talk about that property in Canyon City. I think we may be ready to do something with it. So we mentioned it to this broker that we're talking to on the phone. As we were driving through the market today, I noticed that broker's company now has a sign at Home Depot that they are the listing agent for that property. And I am very hopeful that he saw the potential that we saw in it, and he possibly represents Home Depot in doing a ground lease or selling that property to a developer. He possibly represents some retailers and some potential tenants that may be tenants for that property if something were to happen there. That has literally just happened in the last few weeks because Rick did not remember, and if he did, if it's been there for a while, just don't tell him. But I think that sign is fairly new, and I do think that that's a result of the conversation that we had with him the other day. Home Depot had forgotten about that property. This broker has retailers that are so interested, lukewarm in the market. But once we got on the phone and we showed him that property, he's now listing that property. I think that speaks a lot to the conversations that we're having and what we're doing in the market. I'm really excited about the momentum that we've got. It's next steps strategy-wise, when we drove around today, just looking at Highway 50 and some of the exchanges, there's some prime opportunities along there for redevelopment, but then, I almost went like this one time because Rick was turning and traffic was coming and you've got that frontage road, and so he's a great driver. Maybe I just get a little scared, but strategy-wise, over the course of the next year, I think it's important to think, what are we doing with the highway? How would this play out? Do we want to offer this as a redevelopment opportunity if there were to ever be changes at this intersection? Or do we want to focus down here by where Home Depot is and try to build out here and look at some of these other things? Another thing that I wanted to mention, Les Schwab is coming to town. I know tire stores, gas stations. If I go back to the retail demand outlook, the gas station was like 3% increase over the next 5 years in demand, 4%. I know you don't want to see any more. I will say about Les Schwab, that is a broker that our company has a really good relationship with. Our president, Aaron Farmer, lives in Texas and has him like on speed dial. And, you know, he's got some interest. He's been asking us about other opportunities in the market. And so the relationships are big. The momentum that we've got is big. Being able to strategically think through some of these things is important. And even though we may be getting another gas station or another tire shop, as you drive down and you look at the things that have been built recently, maybe in the last 2 years or the last 5 years, they're being built right. And they're giving everything a facelift. And so it may be something new that you didn't want to see, but regardless, it's going to give a facelift to an area where other retailers are going to start to notice, and then a domino effect, they're going to follow suit. So that's all. If there are any questions, I would love to answer them. I'm sorry to be so swift. And thank y'all so much for letting me be here.
And we can stick around after, too,
Yeah.
if you want to have some personal conversation.
Just a quick comment, Carolyn, you need to let Rick know your birthday, because if Hobby Lobby comes to town, my wife is sending you flowers every year.
Every year.
Well, they sell faux flowers at Hobby Lobby, so he can buy them there.
So you might have to check your credit card.
If you build a 55,000 square foot space, they might do it.
So you talked about getting people on the hook or dangling that hook. And I mean, we definitely want to get to the point where we have people on the hook. Where are we at in that process? I know it takes time.
Really
to
good
get
question,
there.
and I screenshotted an email earlier that I wanted to read to you guys quickly. That was a response that I got from a retailer because I think it kind of speaks to that. We have, and I'll go ahead and say it was I got to get my glasses on. I will say one retailer that we have interested is a shoe retailer, right? They are, that's all I can say, a shoe retailer, but that you can think of some different retailers that are boxes that sell shoes. And over the course of the last year, I have sent this retailer who told me, you know, I have driven that market. I'm really interested. Our company is really interested. There's just not a site. And so we haven't done anything. It just keeps falling behind. But it keeps coming up. But there's nowhere to go. And so I sent him a 10,000, I think, square foot opportunity that was downtown that was being vacated. I sent him the former Bills or Bells space. I sent him several different opportunities. And gosh, now I got to unlock my phone again. Let me just read his response to you. And I think the last site that I sent him, I said, I'm sorry, I feel like we're playing whack-a-mole, but I want you to check out one more opportunity, see if it would work. And he said, Caroline, the reason we were playing whack-a-mole is because blah, 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 blah. It's important for you to know that shoes are an accessory to apparel, and the best co-tenancy for us is a national apparel store, such as Belk, Dillard's, TJX, Ross, Marshalls, Versona, Cato, Old Navy, Maurice's, etc. In addition, we do co-tenant well with Walmart, Target, you're not getting a Target, Ulta, and Hobby Lobby. We do occasionally open freestanding locations. However, these sites are in the middle of retail areas with some of those complementary co-tenants surrounding that standalone. Walmart is the only complementary tenant in the aerial, because I'd sent him kind of just an overview, except for the Bells, which is no longer open. The only way a site would work would be if there was co-tenancy with a national or regional apparel retailer. Thanks for submitting. Let's talk if there's anything else. We've got them on the hook. Now we've got to figure out where we're going to put them and who the developer is going to be to do it. And so that's kind of next steps. We know who wants to be together, so to speak, who wants to go to the dance together, who wants to sit by each other. Now we've got to figure out where we're going to put them and how we're going to make it work. And I think that we've got some really, really good momentum on doing that.
Interesting. Okay, any other questions or comments? We are eating into the Planning Commission's time now, but really appreciate your time to come to Canyon City and spend time here, and for really helping us get in those businesses that we really want to see. Thank you.
I've enjoyed it. Thank y'all.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.